shark. No, 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 no.
Shark Week 2017. You've probably heard that for the last 2 months because pretty much every trip I've caught sharks. So I'll just been my saying I'm just messing around with. But it has kind of brought up something that I noticed is that there's a lot of misinformation out there. One of my skills is that I have a way to kind of communicate things so people understand them a little better. So this video is kind of going to be the truth about sharks. Now, before we get started with the actual shark fishing informational piece, I want to go over some misconceptions that I see a lot in the comments. One of them is, oh, sharks are going extinct. You're fishing for them and they're going extinct. Yes and no, but you have to understand is that everything is not all encompassing, okay? For example, somebody that lives up in Minnesota, they walk outside and there's 5 foot of snow that dumped. That person doesn't go, oh, those Key West people must be hating it right now. If they got 5 feet of snow, they're freezing probably. Are we freezing in 5 foot of snow? No, it's 82 degrees and we're in shorts and t-shirts. Why? Because that little footprint where you're standing isn't necessarily the whole world, okay? And how that correlates to sharks is the Keys are kind of a shark nursery. It's a breeding grounds for sharks. Sharks come here to breed and feed, okay? So we have a very healthy shark population here. Now, if you're talking the East China Sea, where they do long lines and basically everything is free game, okay? Yeah, there's a problem and they're lacking sharks. But because we have very stringent laws, we have excellent law enforcement, we have scientists that basically their livelihood is based on controlling the fish stocks, and that's all they do, okay? So I've been able to travel the world, fish all over the world, and I can tell you that the U.S. and especially Florida and especially the Keys has a very good fishery, managed fishery, okay? And it's very exceptional, and that's why I'm also very positive about anytime they say, no, we need to shut off this certain fishing. I'm more than one to say, hands off for me. I mean, I'll follow the rules on that regards because it is an important aspect to protect these fish stocks. So, but it's, like I said, it's just you have to kind of take it as a whole, but then you also have to remember the certain areas. So over here, I guarantee you, if you step 1 foot in any body of water around the Keys, there's going to be a shark within 50 feet of you. It's just the way it is. There's that many of them. You can't go 50 feet without seeing a shark. And I guarantee you, if you're out in a kayak or on a boat, you may not be able to see them, but there are bunches of shark right below you every minute that you're out on the water. It's just, they're that prevalent down here. So yeah, East China Sea, I would say, yeah, they got a problem. If it was that big of an issue and you're that concerned about it, send a bunch of one-way first class tickets. We'll load up a bunch of sharks from over here and send them over there. But here, sharks are good. So they're fair game, and it's a good sports fish, and we love them. People really don't eat them. People really don't kill them. Really, people don't actually fish for them down here in the Keys, or they don't really target them because they're so prevalent in that you go fish for other stuff, you're just going to catch sharks because they just happen to be there and they're just more of an annoyance than anything. So that's why you'll see when people go fishing, it's like, stupid sharks are killing me. And they're not like, ooh, let's catch them, because it's just a grunt game. It's a workout. You get burned out. They're just big, bulky. They're just tanks. And it's like reeling up a big rock. So give or take there. 2, sharks are dangerous. Okay. Again, okay, I liken them to dogs. They're hungry, all they want to do is eat, and they're nosy, okay? Now dogs, yeah, they like to play. Sharks probably not so much, but definitely they like to eat, okay? And they're nosy. They want to know what's going on, okay? So that's kind of what I attribute to them, and I don't really fear them, and I don't really think they're that dangerous. So that's why I'm kind of lackadaisical on my videos on there, is that they're just big overgrown dogs, basically, and I don't fear those either. Statistically, okay, in the Keys, there's been one reported shark death, okay, since the 1800s, okay? And we get millions upon millions of tourists in the water every year. And there's been one going back to the 1800s, okay? So that's I think one report was like you're 45,000 times at risk getting killed in a car accident than by a shark down here. So it's that basis there. So if you're gonna like take that as your fear, then you have to be rational, understand you're just nuts yourself. It has nothing to do with the sharks. The third one is chum attracting sharks. Now again, you have to be very specific. If you're dumping 50 gallons of pig blood out there to attract sharks, yeah, attract sharks for like these shark tours or whatever. But the chumming I do on my videos is a 7-pound frozen brick of ground up menhaden. Okay, it's just like a fatty sardine basically. Okay, and we put those out, and that does not attract sharks. Okay, what it does is that oil gets out and it attracts little bait fish, and then those little bait fish also are attracting a little bit bigger fish to eat the chum as well as those little fish, and little bigger fish come, and then a fisherman puts a bait on the hook, puts it out there and catches a bigger fish, and that fish struggles and fights, and that fisherman fights that fish, and it's struggling and it's causing a commotion, and all these other fish are eating. Okay, it's action. And that's what the sharks hone in on. The other aspect of it is that sharks associate boats and fishing, people fishing, with food. Okay, that's just the way it is down here. Pretty much most of the boats that you see out here have fishing poles on them, and they're out fishing. Okay, and one of the main standard ways of fishing down here is that chumming aspect. Get on anchor, put out a chum blag, attract a bunch of fish, put your line out and start bringing in a fish. Sharks know that, and it's no different than all the terns and seagulls that are always hovering over boats that are on anchor because they're picking up on the chum and all the fish that are getting thrown out and so forth. It's no different under the water. Those sharks are basically, they hear that boat going over and they're like, ooh, stop, 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 stop. And if that boat stops, they're like, yes. And then they know a couple seconds later, there's going to be a kerplunk, and an anchor with a rope is going to fall into the water. And then a minute or two after that, there's going to hear the splash of that chum bag, and they're going to smell that menhaden oil and little bits going out, and then they're going to see little fish coming. And then they put on their little napkin and get their fork and knife ready. And then, because they're going to wait, and then they're going to see that fish struggling, fighting against that line, getting pulled up, and they're going to go boom and get a free meal. Okay, it happens. It happens. That's why you don't feed wild animals, because they get attuned to and associate people with food. And that's no difference to sharks. Sharks can understand that. And you ask all the fishermen, what happens? You go out, catch a few fish, you start getting some bite-offs. What do? You pick up anchor and you move somewhere else, because that shark is just going to hang out underneath your boat and just waiting for those fish to be brought up. So anyway, so those are just some 3 basic misconceptions that hopefully kind of alleviated and helps you understand some of this. So let's talk about shark fishing. Now, there's a lot of confusion in regards to shark fishing, okay? And I think that misconception comes from the fact that people have their mindset that there's just one style of shark fishing, okay? And that's where the problem lies. In reality, there's multiple ways. There's a apple style of shark fishing and an orange style of shark fishing, and they're total separate entities that require separate equipment, separate styles, and so forth. I mean, I get that comments all the time. Oh, you don't know what you're doing. You need to have a 20-aught circle hook and a 300-pound cable leader and 500-pound mono leader and a 400-pound braided line and 5-mile capacity reel with 80-pound drag and so forth. And then I'm like, no, I'm pretty much can do the same thing with a $30 ugly stick combo from Kmart and 20-pound trialing, okay? And like, oh, no, you can't do that. You got to have this stuff, okay? And that's where I'm going to try to help people understand the differences and the different times you need certain things, and breaking it down so that there is apple and oranges and you can identify those and understand those basic principles on each side Okay, let's talk shark fishing. Now earlier I was kind of pointing out there's like a apple style shark fishing and a orange style shark fishing. Now that wasn't too far off actually, but exchange those names for stationary shark fishing and free-flowing shark fishing. Okay, and if you can distinguish those two characteristics, that'll help you to decipher the different styles, which also will decipher which actual equipment needs for either one of them. So let's talk stationary fishing. That really equates to basically land-based fishing. So you're on a beach, you're on a jetty, you're on a pier. Okay, it's basically you versus the shark, and you're stationary. You're not going anywhere. You're not going swimming with that shark. Okay, you have to put full weight and pressure to fight that shark versus you 1-to-1. Okay, now let's talk free flowing. Free flowing is more like a boat or my kayak, in that we have a shark on and it's basically towing us around. Okay, it's just flowing. We go where that shark goes. There's no drag. It's just what drag we instantly provide is that's all it is. We just follow it around. Okay, so those are the two different characteristics. Now you have to kind of break it down into a little bit more specifics, and because they are important to do. So even with that land base, you can kind of see, yeah, they're stuck on land base, you're stationary, you really can't do much. But really there's a point where you can actually say there's a bit of free flowing, in that if it starts heading up the beach, you can get up and follow that fish along the beach. So you do have a little bit of lateral movement, just like on a pier or a jetty, you do have a little bit of flexibility. Now let's say the free flowing part on a boat or a kayak. What happens if you're on a boat or a kayak but you're on anchor? Okay, you get that shark hooked up, put pressure on it, it's going to pull that boat or kayak towards that fish. That line is going, the rope anchor line is going to tighten up to a point it stops, and then what happens? You're in stationary again. No difference than that land-based fishing. Okay, you're just you against the shark, 1 versus 1. Okay, but then again, you got to think about these variables. So what about if you're free flowing? Okay, I'm on my kayak, shark's pulling me around. Okay, then all of a sudden I end up being on top of that shark. Okay, where I'm up here, shark is way below me and it's just struggling there, and I have to pull that shark straight up. We're back to that stationary again, because I can't go around in circles, I can't go up, okay, I can't go down, I'm stationary, and I have to go 1-to-1 versus that shark in order to pull him up. All right, so there's different variables depending on how you look at it, and that really correlates to the equipment needs that you need for these types of fishing. Like I was alluding to, when a lot of people say, oh, Steve, you need to have the 400 gauge cable wire and the 500 pound mono leader and the 5 mile capacity reel with the 60 pound drag and so forth. Yes, if you're going to be constantly fighting in that stationary aspect, yes, especially land-based, because you can't follow that fish. You are your equipment, you holding that equipment versus the strength of that shark, and you do need all that stuff. Okay, I'm on my kayak, I'm towing around, and I went and shot a little bit of video for you to see how much effort it takes to push a kayak. And I'll insert it here and you can watch that. Okay, we're over here at this bit of a sheltered cove area. Though it's actually fairly windy, but it's just blowing over the top of us. But I wanted to kind of go back to what I was talking about earlier in regards to drag and the free-flowing principles. Because we're on a kayak specifically, that drag is very minimal, to the point where I brought this, a standard Q-tip. And even with just the wind, it's kind of going away from me. But if I put it stable, I could take that Q-tip and basically push that kayak and make it disappear. Just like that. And that fast, that quickly. And that correlates to what I was talking about in regards to the actual equipment requirements that you need for shark fishing. You can put a big old heavy duty reel with 50 pounds drag and run 150, 200 pound braided line and 500 pound leaders. But in realistic, on a kayak, in a free flowing principal state, it doesn't make a difference. It's that weakest link theory. And in this case, it takes about a Q-tip's worth of force to push that kayak along. So imagine with a shark pulling it, how much little effort that it really puts on that shark and how much little stress you put on your equipment. So as you can see, it takes a Q-tip to push my kayak and get going. So what's a 100 to 200, 300 pound shark? How much drag am I creating on my kayak? Absolutely none. So what pound of fishing line do I need in order to fight that shark? 500 pounds with 80 pounds of drag on my reel? No. A Kmart $30 combo, ugly stick combo with 20 pound trilene line works totally fine for that, because I'm just basically towing me along until it gets tired, and then I could fight them up. Okay. However, if I'm out in some deep ocean and that shark is at the bottom of that ocean and I'm up on top and we're back to stationary fighting, that ugly stick ain't gonna make it. Then I need to have that equipment or somewhat like that equipment from land-based so that I could torque that dude up and put a lot of heat and drag and basically tow that fish up to the surface. Okay, so that's the variables that you have to look at. But again, for those people that saying I need to have that 400 pound and that land-based shark equipment, no, if you see during my shark fights, the thing that I'm always saying is that I need to lead them to the flats. I'm trying to take them to the flats. And why is that? Because when I get them on the flats, okay, how much lateral or vertical movement do they get? None, because it's only 6 foot of water, 5 foot of water, 4 foot of water. They're done. They have to stay up on the same plane I am, and a $30 ugly stick does fine. I'm just holding on to me. They're dragging me in the water, and they can't go down, so I'm perfectly fine in that regards. Okay. So those equipment needs are really specifically dependent on the type of fishing that you're going to be doing, whether it be stationary or free-flowing or at one port free-flowing, but you want to do the stationary by dragging that shark up, then you need to adjust your equipment therefore. But for me, I don't really need that heavy equipment because I tend to fish channels surrounded by flats. And once I just wear them out, I basically just kind of gear them over towards the flats and I'm back to that lateral side of it. So let's talk hooks and leaders and cable wire and so forth. Okay, so we've gone over the importance of understanding the stationary versus free-flowing and the different equipment utilized depending on which one of those that you use. It actually follows back down to even to this portion, which is like the hooks, line, and leaders. Now, I've got two examples here that I commonly use. So this is a 14-aught stainless steel circle hook. This one here is my everyday 7-aught circle hook, inline, standard nickel-plated, basic hook. Okay. Now, this is my go-to even for the big sharks. And a lot of times people say, oh, you got to have a bigger hook. That's not the right hook. You're missing too many bites because you don't have a big enough hook. You need to understand that we're using circle hooks, okay? And this 14-aught circle hook, the gap here between the point and the neck is actually less than my 7-aught circle hook by a lot. Now, how is that? Okay, because the gap doesn't matter. The size of the gap to the hook doesn't matter because it's a circle hook. It's made to be caught in the corner of the mouth. Okay, so let me explain how the circle hooks work. Okay, basically you have the bait on there. You want the fish to swallow that bait, actually get it down, stomach and all. Okay, because they're made to not grab in the stomach because that's what the circular part is. You can see it doesn't, it won't catch. Okay, it'll pull right across and it'll never catch there. So if it goes in the stomach, it'll come out of the stomach. The only place that it'll engage is when it gets pulled across and into the corner of the mouth. Not the roof of the mouth, not the side of the mouth, not the side of the face, not the body. It's only in the corner of the mouth, and that's why circle hooks are such the important aspect for shark fishing and catch and release fishing in general. Enough so, these 7-aught circle hooks that I utilize are these Billfish Federation endorsed hooks. And they call these the tournament specific hooks, because when you do fishing tournaments and you're using live bait or dead baits, you got to use a circle hook, and they prefer this style of hook. Why? Because they're super strong, they're super anything? No, it's because they corrode easily. Okay, they're heavy duty strong, but they'll corrode quickly with that light nickel plating. Okay, so the preferred way of releasing a billfish these days is a toss-up between the damage you cause by captivating a sailfish and basically taking it to the point of exhaustion and manipulating it to remove the hook, versus just while it's still green, getting to the leader, cutting that leader by the hook, and just letting it go, letting that hook rust out, corrode out, and just fall out. Now, a lot of people say, oh, you're going to kill that fish you left the hook in. Okay. Now, I've actually done a video about this to kind of help appease those people, so if you want to watch that. But these hooks will basically, the barb on it will rust out in about a week in just general salt water. And in basically 3 weeks to a month, this hook in general will corrode up to the point where that it'll almost disintegrate. Okay. On top of that, okay, if you have that such an issue with a shark or a fish having a metal hook in their mouth, what about all these girls with daddy issues that have all these face piercings? Are they like just dying on the side of the road? No, because it's not that big of a deal. Okay, just need to understand those points. Now, the huge difference in the size of the actual wire, this 14-aught circle, is a lot thicker, a lot heavier duty. It goes back to stationary, free-flowing, how much pressure you're going to actually put on it. If you're putting on that 300-pound braided line with a 500-pound cable leader, this will be your weakest link unless you get a heavy-duty hook, and that's where that comes into play. Are you using that equipment on your kayak where you have realistically 2 pounds of pulling force? No, you're doing it because you're doing stationary, land-based, or on a boat when you're vertical or on anchor. All right. Hence, I'm free-flowing guy. I'm fine with these guys. Then let's talk about these leaders. Okay, we've got standard wire, we've got some 49 strand cable, and we just got heavy duty mono. Okay. Again, free-flowing, stationary. Depends on what your usage is. Also, remember, we're using circle hooks and how they work. The reason what you use the wire for is because that swallowing principle. Once that hook is in the corner of the mouth, okay, of that shark's mouth, and they're swimming away this way, and that line is behind them, it never gets close to that shark's teeth again. So that's not the factor that you need to worry about. The reason why you have that bite leader is when you're allowing that circle hook to be swallowed and that leader is going through that shark's mouth, it's also going through that teeth. So you need that leader to be as long as you're going to allow that hook to go in that shark's mouth. When you're land-based fishing and you're going after big sharks and you're using big baits, you're going to let them take line because they're going to grab it, they're going to swim away. Then you're going to start chomping on it, and then you're going to have to wait even longer, and then they're finally going to take it and start swallowing it. Then you can set that hook and do it correctly. So you might need a longer piece of wire in order to wait for that whole time frame. Where I'm fishing, I'm very up close. I could see the line, I could see the directions it's moving. I know the countdown time frame that I'm going to utilize, 3 seconds, 5 seconds. If they're turning quickly, if they're going straight out. And I could set that so my 1 foot of wire leader is fine because I'm not going to let them swallow 4 foot of leader before I set that hook. Also, some people don't like to use wire because that metal part of it, they feel that the sharks can sense it. So they just use heavy mono as a leader for that same principle, just enough to get it where it goes through the shark's stomach, and then they're able to set that hook, get that placement on the corner of the mouth, and then that line is going back and it's not even coming close to the teeth. Now, that's also where the mono leader comes into play, because it's not so much about the teeth anymore. You've got that hook set correctly. It's about chafing, okay? And it's no different than my tarpon fishing is that they'll just keep rubbing against that body and the neck and the mouth and tail to the point where it's very abrasive and eventually it'll wear through and then it's over. So you have to take that into a factor. Land-based, standing flat with against a shark, going straight out, that line is going right along the back of that shark and it's just rubbing the entire time, rubbing, rubbing, rubbing. Where am I? On a kayak, up and behind it. Line's going here. It never rubs against that body, okay? Until I get it up on the surface, but usually I'm right on top of it. Doesn't require super heavy duty leader in that regards, okay? Apples and oranges, got to keep those values in place. So anyways, that's hooks, line, leaders, and still apples and oranges. Understand which one, then you'll understand what's required. Okay, so that's the general principles of shark fishing. Hopefully that explanation of understanding the stationary versus free-flowing, okay, and the methods and the equipment required depending on which one that you're utilizing helps to kind of simplify things. For me, on my style of fishing, I'm free-flowing, okay? At the point I get that bite, I throw that anchor loose, and I'm at 2.5 pounds max drag until I wear that shark out. Pretty uncomplicated stuff. 80-pound mono leader, long, foot or so of some 40-pound wire, and a 7/0 circle hook, and I'm fine. I'll catch Brutus with that because it doesn't really require more than that. Everything beyond that is negligible in regards to what it does. On the flip side, if I'm going fishing for Brutus off the shore, then I need to make sure every single component is at that same heavy duty standards and can stand up to the force that's going to be applied by that big shark in a stationary position. Okay, apples and oranges. So it's just a matter of which way you choose to fish will require certain types of equipment. So hopefully that kind of explains things and helps you understand, and if you're going to be getting into shark fishing, what type of equipment that you should kind of start thinking about based on the style of fishing that you're going to do. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video. Bye.